The fire started just before midnight. A thin curl of smoke drifted through the valley, silent and slow, before the wind took it and spread it across the dark plains. By the time Clara Boone reached the ridge, the sky behind her ranch was burning red. Her breath came hard, her shawl whipping in the wind. The smell of cedar, dust, and loss filled the air. "God, help me," she whispered, staring at the flames that swallowed everything she'd built. The Boone Ranch, the last piece of her husband's legacy, was going up in fire. Men rode past in the night, shouting orders, hauling buckets, but the flames were too strong. The barn's roof collapsed, sparks leaping into the black sky. Horses screamed from their pens. Clara ran toward them, her boots sinking in the ash. "Easy now, Daisy, easy," she called, cutting the rope with her knife. The mare bolted, vanishing into the smoke. Someone grabbed her arm, strong, firm, and desperate. "Mrs. Boone, you can't go back in there." She turned and saw Marshal Ethan Cole, his face half lit by the fire's glow. "Let go, Ethan," she cried. "He's still in there." "Who?" he shouted over the roar. "My boy, Henry." Without a word, Ethan ran through the smoke. Clara fell to her knees, coughing, eyes stinging from the heat. She prayed she was wrong, that her boy had slipped out, maybe hiding by the creek like he used to. But the longer the fire roared, the less she could hope. When Ethan emerged again, he was carrying something wrapped in a blanket. For a moment, Clara's world froze. Her lips trembled. "Please, no." Ethan laid the bundle down gently on the dirt. The flames reflected in his eyes as he said nothing. Clara screamed, a sound that tore through the night like the wind itself. The next morning, the ranch was nothing but a field of smoking ruins. Blackened timbers, charred fences, ashes floating like gray snow, and in the center a mother standing still, holding her son's small wooden horse, the one he'd carved with his father before the war. Neighbors came and went, whispering, "The poor woman's lost everything. She and Boone built that place from nothing. She ain't been the same since he died." Ethan stayed near her porch, hat in hand, eyes hollow. He'd been there the day Boone fell, ambushed near the Silver Creek mines. They'd buried the man side by side, and though Ethan carried guilt like a shadow, he'd never found the courage to tell her the truth. Clara broke the silence first. "Do you think God punishes a woman for her anger?" she asked, her voice quiet and raw. Ethan shook his head. "I think he understands it better than most." Her eyes lingered on the ashes. "Then I hope he understands mine." That night, after the townsfolk left, she sat alone by the remains of her home. The moonlight spilled across the valley. The embers still glowed faintly, little red eyes in the dark. She tossed another piece of wood into the pit, and for a moment she saw him. Not her son, not Boone, but Ethan. Standing in the firelight, years younger, his jaw unscarred, his eyes steady as they'd been the day he'd promised Boone he'd watch over her. Only this time, in the flicker of those flames, she smiled. Because she finally understood. The fire hadn't taken her memories. It had revealed them. Boone's last letter, hidden for years in a tin box by the barn, now lay scorched but readable among the ashes. She unfolded it, hands trembling. "If I don't make it home, tell Ethan he's more than a friend, he's my brother, and if he ever finds the courage to love again, I hope it's you." Her tears mixed with ash as the words sank in. The flames licked at the air, glowing gold against her face. Behind her, footsteps crunched on the dirt. Ethan stood in the shadows, hat pressed to his chest. "I shouldn't have come back tonight," he said softly. "You came when you were needed," she replied. He hesitated, looking at her, the light dancing on her face, the fire reflecting in her eyes. "You saw me in there," he whispered, "in the flames." Clara turned toward him, a faint smile rising through her grief. "Yes," she said, "and I wasn't afraid." The silence stretched between them, filled with memories, ghosts, and the sound of burning wood. "I couldn't save him," Ethan murmured. I tried. Clara shook her head slowly. You did what no one else could. You came back. He looked down, his voice breaking. I failed, Boone. And now I've failed you. No, she said gently. You just forgot that some fires don't destroy, they refine. The wind carried sparks into the night sky, tiny stars flickering and fading. Ethan stepped closer. What will you do now? She looked at the horizon, where dawn began to break. Rebuild, she said quietly, with what's left. He nodded once. I'll help you. Clara's gaze softened. Maybe that's what Boone wanted all along. The fire cracked one last time, throwing up a brief bright flare that lit both their faces, and in that light, fleeting, tender, and full of ghosts, she smiled again. Not because the pain was gone, but because she finally saw the man her husband had trusted, standing where the flames met the dawn. This is the end of Part 1. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. We'll be back soon with the next chapter. 3 weeks. 3 weeks since the fire stole everything. The Boone Ranch was now just a whisper, a field of silent ghosts where the smell of smoke still clung to the air. But life, stubborn and quiet, was finding its way back. I started building a small cabin by the old well. The boards were rough, the roof wasn't perfect, but it stood, just like me. Ethan was there every day, hammering, cutting, pulling what little we could from the ashes. He didn't say much, but his silence was a promise. He wasn't leaving me again. Every sunset, we'd sit on the porch of that half-built cabin. The sky would burn gold, and the coyotes would sing their lonely songs in the distance. Sometimes I'd hum the tune my son used to whistle. It was a small, sweet sound that always made Ethan lower his head. I knew he was remembering Boone's laugh, the way he used to call Ethan brother. One evening, I was boiling coffee over the fire when I saw Ethan standing near the burnt corral. He was staring at something in the dirt. He knelt down, brushed away the ash, and pulled out an old badge. It was half melted, the words almost gone. It was Boone's. He just stood there, turning it over and over in his hand, his jaw tight. I walked over, the lantern light dancing on my face. I didn't know you kept that, I said softly. He didn't answer, his eyes were a million miles away. Boone told me once, I continued, that he wore that badge for honor, not for power. He said it reminded him of the man he wanted to be. Ethan's voice, when it came, was low and heavy. He died wearing it. I frowned. I knew there were pieces of that day I'd never been told. You never told me what happened out there, Ethan. I deserve to know. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and the silence stretched out between us. He let out a long breath like he was setting down a burden he'd carried for far too long. It wasn't a bandit ambush, he said. It was a setup. My brow furrowed. A setup? He nodded, his eyes dark. Boone found out someone in town was running guns through the mine. He was going to bring them in, but one of the men, one of our own deputies, he betrayed him. When the bullets started flying, I was supposed to have his back, but He swallowed hard, the words catching in his throat. I hesitated. The world tilted. You hesitated? His voice cracked. He was my friend, Clara, my brother, and I froze. By the time I reached him, he was already down. The wind howled between us, cold and sharp. My hand trembled as I reached out and touched the burnt badge. All this time. You carried that? He just nodded. Every day. Tears I didn't know I had filled my eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? His answer was a whisper. Because I couldn't bear to see you hate me. I had to turn away, hiding my face in the shadows. The fire popped, sending sparks into the night like tiny ghosts. I don't hate you, Ethan, I said, but I don't know what to feel. He didn't expect forgiveness. He just quietly set Boone's badge on a rock beside me and walked off into the darkness, leaving me alone with the truth. That night, sleep wouldn't come. The flames flickered in my dreams again, but this time they weren't scary. I saw Boone's face, calm and proud, smiling like he used to after a long day's work, and standing beside him was Ethan. The two of them, side by side, just like they always were. I woke to a gray dawn sky. I went outside and found Ethan by the well, his head bowed, rifle resting across his knees. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. He just shook his head. I sat down beside him. "You said someone betrayed Boone. Who was it?" His jaw tightened. "A man named Merrick. He's the sheriff now. Wears the same badge Boone died for." My eyes went wide. Merrick. The man who stopped my son Henry that night he wandered into town. He told him to stay off the main road. Ethan nodded grimly. He knew I'd be at the mine. He didn't want any witnesses to the fire he started. My breath caught in my throat. "You mean?" "Yeah," Ethan said, his voice flat. "He lit the fuse that killed Boone." I stood up slowly, my hands clenched into fists. "Then I reckon it's time that fire burned him, too." He looked up at me surprised. "Clara." I turned, my eyes fixed on the valley below, my voice as cold and steady as a winter river. "I lost everything once, Ethan. My home, my son, my husband. I won't lose what's right again." That afternoon, we rode into Red Creek together. We were silent, two riders carrying the weight of ghosts on our shoulders. The whole town went quiet as we passed. The saloon doors creaked shut. The sheriff's office sat still as a tomb. Ethan swung down from his horse, his boots crunching in the dust. I followed, my eyes locked on the door with the brass star nailed to it. Inside, Sheriff Merrick was sitting behind his desk polishing a gun that was far too clean for an honest man's. "Well, if it ain't the marshal," he drawled, a smug look on his face. "Didn't think you had the guts to show your face here again." Ethan's hand hovered over his holster. I stepped up behind him, my voice calm but sharp as a razor. "We came for the truth." Merrick just smiled, a smile with no warmth in it. "Truth's expensive in this town." "Good thing we're paying in justice," I shot back. The air in that room grew thick, heavy like the air before a lightning strike. Ethan's eyes met Merrick's. Two men, bound by the same terrible past. "Tell her," Ethan said, his voice a low command. Merrick's smile finally faded. "Tell her what?" "That you killed Boone." For a single, frozen heartbeat, the world stopped turning. Then Merrick's grin returned, cruel and hollow. "Maybe I did, and maybe you helped me." I gasped, a sharp, broken sound. Ethan drew his gun. Merrick's hand flashed toward his own. A single shot thundered through the office, a deafening crack that echoed across all of Red Creek. The dust settled, and one man fell. The morning light crawls across the plains, painting the ranch in a soft, hazy gold. A gentle wind sways the tall grass, whispering against a broken fence post. Ethan rides alone through the valley, his silhouette a stark, dark line cutting across the rising sun. Dust, fine as powdered sugar, rises from the hooves of his horse as he finally crests the ridge, looking down upon Red Creek. Smoke curls gently from the stone chimney, a fragile, hopeful sign of peace in a land that has known too little of it. The only sound is the distant, lonely call of crows, echoing through the still, cool air. Ethan slows his horse as he nears the old, sprawling oak tree, its branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. His eyes are distant, lost in a sea of memory. He swings down from the saddle, the leather groaning in protest, and removes his hat, his head bowed toward a small, weathered grave. Boone's grave. A single, wilted flower rests against the rough-hewn wooden cross, a testament to a love that time could not erase. Clara is already there, kneeling beside the grave, her fingers tracing the carved letters of Boone's name as if to conjure his presence from the cold earth. Ethan approaches, his steps slow and heavy. He sets a small tin badge on the flat stone at the base of the cross, the sheriff's star, its shine long since tarnished by dust and grief. It lies there, a final, silent farewell. The wind shifts, carrying with it the faint, earthy scent of coming rain. Far beyond the canyon line, thunder rumbles, a low, deep growl that seems to vibrate through the very ground beneath their feet. Clara looks toward the horizon, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Ethan watches her in silence, the words he wants to say caught in his throat, choked by a sorrow too deep to voice. He's never been good with words, not the ones that matter. The sky darkens quickly, bruised purple and gray as clouds gather ominously over Red Creek. In the corral, the ranch horses stir restlessly, sensing the change in the air. One by one, lanterns flicker to life in the cabin windows, their soft orange glow a defiant warmth against the encroaching dusk. Then the rain begins to fall. It comes down slow and gentle at first, each drop like a long-awaited forgiveness, washing away the layers of dust and time. Ethan helps Clara move barrels under the cover of the shed roof, their movements practiced and synchronized. Their hands brush for a fleeting moment, a spark of contact in the cooling air. They both pause, a heartbeat suspended between them. She looks up at him, her gaze direct and unflinching, and for the first time since he returned, she doesn't look away. Water drips from the brim of his hat, and a quiet, unexpected laugh escapes him. In that instant, lightning flashes across the plains, illuminating their faces in a stark, beautiful relief. Then the storm breaks open, a sudden, torrential downpour that seems intent on washing away the dust of years. Inside the cabin, the fire crackles softly in the hearth, a comforting, living sound. Ethan stands near it, staring into the dancing flames, his thoughts a world away. In the shifting light and shadow he sees Boone's face, smiling, proud, and finally peaceful. Clara moves quietly behind him, setting 2 steaming mugs on the small wooden table. He joins her, and they sit in a silence that is warm and companionable, not heavy with unspoken grief. The wind whistles through the cracks of the window frame, a mournful song accompanying the steady drumming of rain on the roof. Clara glances toward the fire, her voice a mere whisper carried on the air. Boone. Just his name, but it holds a universe of feeling. Ethan looks down at his hands, his own voice low and rough when he finally speaks. He'd be proud of you, Clara. A faint, sad smile touches her lips. He'd be proud of both of us. Outside, the fury of the storm begins to fade, softening into a gentle, steady drizzle. The clean, rich smell of wet earth fills the air, a scent of renewal and life. The lantern light on the table reflects in her eyes, turning them into tiny, captured suns. He takes a deep breath, his hat still clutched in his hands. I'll be heading north come morning, he says softly, the words hanging in the quiet space between them. Her face falls, just for a moment, a flicker of disappointment she can't quite hide. But she nods, her gaze returning to the fire. I figured, she whispers. He looks at her, a question in his eyes. You'll be all right? I've been all right before, she says, a hint of her old fire returning. A small smile plays on his lips. Yeah, but not like this. A small, quiet laugh escapes her, a sound that is sad and honest and utterly real. The rain stops completely, and a sliver of moonlight breaks through the thinning clouds, painting the world outside in shades of silver and gray. They step out onto the porch, the land washed clean and new. The great oak tree glows silver under the moon, its leaves dripping with leftover rain. Clara walks to it, placing her hand on the rough, damp bark. This is where he asked me to marry him, she says, her voice soft with memory. Ethan nods, his own voice gentle. Boone always did choose right. The air hums with the sound of crickets and the whisper of the wind. In the distance, a lone wolf howls, a wild and lonely sound that speaks to the vastness of the land around them. She turns to look at Ethan, her expression serious. "Promise me something." "Anything," he answers without hesitation. "Don't disappear again," she says, her voice pleading. He meets her gaze, holding it for a long, steady moment. "I'll try," he whispers, the most honest promise he can give. She steps closer, so close he can feel the warmth of her breath. "Then that's enough," she says. Through the window, the fire in the cabin flickers, casting a warm glow that seems to pull them in. For the first time in a long time, the world feels small, warm, and still. Ethan tilts his hat, a soft, rare smile crossing his face. He mounts his horse slowly, the familiar creak of the saddle a comforting sound. Clara stands on the porch, holding her lantern high, its light cutting a path through the darkness. "Ride safe, Marshal," she says, the title a relic of a life he's leaving behind. "Always do," he replies, though they both know it's a lie. He rides out, the sound of his horse's hooves a muffled echo against the wet ground. The lantern's glow fades behind him, shrinking to a single point of light in the vast darkness. He looks back once, just once, and sees it still burning, a steady, unwavering heartbeat in the night. The sky above opens wide, a canopy of brilliant stars over the silent valley. He rides toward the mountains where the first hint of dawn waits. Faintly, carried on the wind, he thinks he hears Clara's voice. "Rest easy, my love. The fire kept its promise." He closes his eyes for a moment, letting the words wash over him, a balm on a weary soul. Boone's laughter echoes in his memory, a promise finally fulfilled. The plains stretch endless and wild before him. A hawk circles high above, its sharp cry piercing the quiet of the coming dawn. Ethan tips his hat to the rising sun. Somewhere behind him, Red Creek breathes again. Clara stands by the old oak, the lantern still glowing in her hand. The wind lifts a stray strand of her hair, seeming to carry away the last of her tears. She looks toward the horizon, her expression calm and sure. The morning light breaks through the clouds, warm and golden, spilling across the land. Smoke rises in a steady, gentle plume from the cabin chimney. A profound peace settles over the ranch like a soft blanket. Inside, the fire burns steady and bright, just as Boone had promised it always would. She whispers to the morning air, to the memory of the man she loved, and to the future that is now her own. He's free now, and so am I. Her smile glows through the morning mist, and the world feels new again. The wind rustles the leaves of the oak tree, a soft, hopeful sound. And under that tree, she waits, not for loss, but for life.